Newly revealed footage shows Trump veteran Roger Stone admitting, among other things, that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, which undercuts the very fraud claims Stone was pushing in the entire Stop the Steal effort. This is on video. There's also other public claims that Stone had made about election fraud. Those also undercut. Now, part of this is about a larger road to accountability, and that's our breakdown tonight. We, here on The Beat, already broke some of this new footage last week about elector fraud. Last night, we showed you another new video about Stone admitting those lies. And so I'm going to tell you how this all fits in. But here's a clip of, very briefly, Stone on Jan 6 casually referring to the fact Trump lost, discussing how they were the Trump campaign officials.
That's why they lost. They don't know what they're doing.
It's why they lost. Stone's so clear on the Trump loss that it's almost an aside there. His focus was about something wider, his spat with the Trump campaign that prevented him from star billing on the Ellipse stage that day. So here's the whole scene.
I don't understand how they want us to lead the march, but they can't even tell us where to go. So it doesn't make any sense. I think you just got your answer.
That we're not speaking?
Yeah. I mean, if we were speaking, we'd have transportation, as Giuliani did. It's fun. Let's go upstairs and watch this on TV. It was very clear I was never on their list. Whole thing was a con job. No, it's infuriating. It's just childish and it's amateurish. That's why they lost. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah, I hear you. All right, I will talk to you in a bit. Yep.
That's the context, and you see there the lead up. He was upset about not getting to speak and what he considered a haphazard manner, and then you see him coming out of that room on the phone telling someone it's why they lost. Now, this is newly released footage from the documentary A Storm Foretold. If you've watched The Beat, you may have seen we actually interviewed this filmmaker twice. He also told us the FBI has expressed interest in some of this footage. Now, this footage only exists because Roger Stone granted the filmmakers access to those efforts. That is very important tonight as I update you on all this, because beyond the new footage, our breakdown is going to show you how this fits into the Open Georgia case. Now, we contacted Roger Stone each time we ran these stories. He did not provide a comment for us, but in terms of fairness, when he commented in public after these stories aired on The Beat, I want to bring you each of those comments. We showed you his denials about the elector plot last week. This is new tonight. Stone now responding again to our report from last night. Now he is arguing, as he says he watched this program, video had all the hallmarks of Danish disinformation. So we wanted to bring you his response. He didn't give it to us in time for air, but that is his version of a rebuttal. Now, Mr. Stone has every right to deny wrongdoing or even take issue with the presentation of this material. But it's also notable, if we're talking about facts, that anything that one could conclude looks bad or even legally incriminating for Mr. Stone is from him. These are accurate videos from his mouth. These are Stone's words, or his truths, as he would say, or his claims at the time. And these came in a project where he invited the cameras in. He knew they were on. So going out now tonight and saying that his own authorized documentary, where he authorized the access himself, is somehow propaganda disinformation, is, of course, in tension with his direct involvement. I say that for the record and as fairly as possible. Now, it may sound obvious Trump lost, and it may sound obvious to many that Roger Stone knew it. In December 2020, he was claiming North Korea was interfering in the presidential election. He was falsely asserting he had incontrovertible evidence of North Korean boats delivering ballots through a harbor in Maine. That is just one of many such fraudulent claims. And while we've pointed out many times in our coverage that saying that in public is not usually a crime, and that's what Stone did there, when Mr. Giuliani and others made those same claims to government officials or in the elector fraud plot, they now stand indicted for that. So Stone is in that ballpark, even if not as legally culpable. This matters when we show you him admitting in private that he knew it was all lies. Indeed, it intersects with something we discussed earlier in the broadcast. Do people, even people who are inclined to support Donald Trump, pay attention to see the facts and that they are being conned, sometimes by Trump, sometimes by Trump's mini-me's like Stone? Now, Giuliani falsely smeared those election workers we've reported on, Ms. Freeman and Moss, about lies, claiming they did things to Georgia voting machines they didn't do. But let me show you this tonight as part of our special report. Did you know that Giuliani, under legal pressure, later had to admit just last month he was lying? That concession came in court papers as he fights for his career and possibly liberty. Trump attorney Jenna Ellis back in the news because she's been complaining about Trump not funding her legal defense. She pushed the false election fraud claims, but then in a disciplinary hearing where she was in danger of losing her law license with her whole potential career ahead of her, well, she admitted that she, quote, misrepresented evidence at least 10 times during Trump's bid to subvert his defeat, as Politico reported. So it matters that there is evidence, and it matters to many of these people, some of them now defendants, that the evidence and the footage is adding up in a process going towards accountability. As for that elector plot, well, that was last week when we showed that Trump was being boosted in that plot by Stone earlier than it had ever been known before. And that scoop we reported on The Beat, well, it got picked up in many outlets as quite clearly news. It adds to what we know about the early scheming, and it shows some of the earliest promotion of a plan that later got people indicted. Roger Stone was in contact with Donald Trump for decades. He was close enough with then outgoing President Trump to get a pardon before he left office. And we know Stone was also trading calls in January 2020 with Trump. The Congressional January 6 Committee's investigation documented that. So it is striking that he was, we've now learned recently, one of the first top people pushing that elector plot idea. Keep that in mind when you look at this video excerpt.
The final decision as to who the state legislatures authorize be sent to the Electoral College is a decision made solely by the legislature. We must be prepared to lobby our Republican legislatures.
Legally, false. Votes are not decided by politicians and state legislators. Votes are just decided by voters. Everybody actually knows that. Now, as I've been careful to say, Roger Stone saying those words and sending that out alone is not generally considered a crime. And I want to be clear, based on a full investigation up to this point, the Georgia DA and that probe has not resulted in an indictment of Mr. Stone. But I also want to be clear about just how close the heat is, because the DA does allege crimes across these several coup plots that we've shown at the state level. You can see many of these things are now indicted. We've been tracking all of them for you. And Stone's comments get at least near the rhetorical space of two plots. The electors plot, that's the seating of those fraudulent electors, we showed earlier tonight, a state official claiming that if he broke the law as a fake elector, he did it at Trump's direction. And then what you just heard Stone say in his own voice. Oh, let's just get the Georgia politicians to overturn the votes of the people. That's called a coup. It's not legal. The indictment charges Eastman and Ellis in the elector plot, specifically the solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer, that they were doing that, seeking public officers to serve then, for example, as elected members of the Georgia Senate or in those other plots, unlawfully appointing presidential electors from Georgia. Again, no matter how you take the road, if you have a bunch of Trump electors in a state Biden actually won, you're committing elector fraud, or as they call it here, a solicitation fraud. That is the elector plot. Over on the state official side, you have DOJ's Jeffrey Clark accused of that, criminal attempt to commit false statements and writings, among other things, over trying to get the DOJ to falsely use and abuse its government power to tell Georgia officials that, well, maybe voter fraud had marred the whole election. Defendant Trump accused of the same type of state pressure campaign, including his calls to the state's governor, the attorney general, and other key voting officials. You can see it all there. It adds up to quite a lot of RICO evidence. Everyone is still legally presumed innocent. But when you take this all back to Roger Stone, he is not indicted. He has not been identified as a co-conspirator. But he is now in a place he wasn't just a couple weeks ago. He is linked in November, before the votes were even counted, to pushing At least the words and description of one of the plots that I just showed you is now indicted as a very big RICO case. That is a lot of heat. And the question remains, as in basically every investigation, whether it is governmental, legal, or journalistic, what does the rest of the evidence show? What videos and tapes and testimony do we not have? What else is it that we don't yet know?